Officially, it is 7 o'clock, so let's call the meeting to order, and I invite those who are willing and able to stand for the pledge, please. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Whoops. Thought I forgot it. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Pals. Do I have a second? Thank you, Mrs. Talbert. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor of approving the agenda signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving on to number 4, new business. 4.1, resolution canvassing the returns of the votes of school district general election.
The school board needs to canvass the election, and the results were Brad Carson, 1,415 votes, Jeff Botts, 1,232 votes, Amy Nelson, 1,014 votes, Michelle Neas, 976 votes, Kelly Burns, 974 votes, Mary Lapthorne, 852 votes, and John Sullivan, 543 votes. There were some other write-in candidates also, but we don't have to list them because they didn't get to any there. So congratulations to Brad Carson, Jeff Botts, and Amy Nelson on their election to the school board. You need to canvass this, and that their duties will begin on January 1, and that's what we need.
Do I have a motion to approve the resolution canvassing returns of votes of school district general election?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Erdman. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Weiss. Any other thoughts? Discussion? Questions? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the resolution canvassing returns of votes of school district general elections signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 4.2, resolution is authorizing insurance of certificates of election and directing school district clerk to perform other election-related duties.
This is where the clerk comes in to take care of the election process and finalize some paperwork that needs to be done with the county. And typically Deb takes care of that for the school board, and so this is authorizing her to perform those duties. So.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson.
Yep.
Do I have a motion to approve 4.2? I'm not reading all that again.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Oy. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Erdman. Any other thoughts? Any other discussion? Any other questions? Hearing none. All those in favor of 4.2 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 4.3, facility task force recommendation.
All right. Thank you to Brad Carson and Jeremy Whipple for being here this evening. They were members of the task force and were at a number of the meetings that we had. And so appreciate you guys being here tonight. Just a little bit of a preview of the recommendation. I just want to go back that in the fall of 2017, a facility study was presented by ISG to the school board in regards to our school facilities. The study was requested during the 2016 school year to get a handle on our facility needs due to the long-term facility maintenance plan that we needed to submit and have prepared for the state every year. The priority issue driving that study was our 60-year-old elementary school buildings, their maintenance needs, and their space issues. And if the board recalls, we even considered some temporary classroom spaces and found that not to be a feasible option also. After that study was presented, the school board sought community input on that report and held 2 community meetings. And from those meetings, the community recommended that we seek more specific information and some solutions and costs. And after that, the school board decided to put together or call for a community task force to study possible solutions and offer a recommendation to the school board. The task force met 4 times since last spring up until just last week to look at those things. They narrowed some choices down. We actually commissioned a community survey for the task force. The board did that on some of the specific things that they had narrowed down. and basically they met last week for the final time and have been comfortable coming forth with the following recommendations. Basically, the task force said that the school board, they would recommend the school board consider a 2-question ballot. The first question would be in regards to a new pre-K through grade 5 elementary school located out here at the middle school, high school site, and that Brown and Hill Elementaries be decommissioned. The project is in the approximate cost of $26.8 million. These were some of the estimations that we had, and so that was what the task force said we should look at on question 1. Question 2 would be to upgrade safety and security at the middle school, high school, and Minders Community Library, and that was at a cost of about $930,000. So that's what kind of has come out, and that's a very short synopsis of this process. I'd like to say that we've spent upwards of quite a few hours, probably in that 80 to 100 hours of community time and study and with our committee meetings, the board discussions, work with the community task force, work with community meetings and having those. And our work isn't done, but this is the next step in this process. And so where we're at is to look at the board making a decision of how to proceed from here. And there's still a few more steps, but I think I'd like to, at this time, I don't know if anybody has any questions or thoughts on these recommendations, or if not, we do have with us tonight Kelly Smith from Springstead. That's our financial planner. Rod Schumacher from ISG, and Gary Benson from Kraus Anderson are here tonight. And I thought that maybe, one of the things with the finances of all of this, maybe Kelly could talk a little bit about some of the timelines and how some of this works with the finances of a project of this size.
Well, first, thanks for having me here tonight, and happy to answer any questions you have. With regard to financing, what we've done so far is make some estimates based on the district holding a spring election and then having a bond sale next summer. So you would have proceeds available next August approximately. And August 1st is the key date for us, because that, if you get the proceeds before that, you have to do something called capitalized interest. Basically, you add interest to what you're borrowing, because you don't have time to get it on your levy and pay it back that way. So August 1st is the date we're always looking at. And I think that fits obviously with the timeline you have. So last summer, we were making projections based on a range of costs, and I think we were 22 million up to 30-some million. Tried to give you an estimate of what the tax impacts would be for those different price points. Now that it's narrowed down, we would go back, and obviously the market has changed since July, so we would update where things are at with the market to get you a new run of numbers. We're still making projections of what that's going to be over 8 months away from now. So they are estimates, but that's what we do, and we're usually pretty spot on those estimates. But we will update the numbers due to what has been happening with the markets right now. So, and now that you're narrowed in on a dollar amount.
And I think that's important for the board to remember that, we called for these numbers last summer and things change, and we knew that, and it's, and so, but, community wanted to know, what's this gonna cost me? What does it look like? And I think, on the average home in Pipestone or in the school district, it's, would be like a $32 a year increase. Well, we may run these again, and it might be $34 or $35, and why? Because they're run at different times, and as you all know, when we do our truth in taxation, things change with market values, and it could go down too. I just don't know if the market right now is going that way. It would have been nice if it were, but I don't know if it is. But I think that's something too that we want to make sure that the community understands is, those are preliminary numbers. Those were things that we were running. We don't see a huge variation in them, but there might be some, and so, that was just part of this. We can't tie into those numbers. Still can't tie into them until we have something that's been passed, but we'll know that for sure. Any questions for Kelly at all, or?
I would just clarify one thing. So we're a financial advisor to the district, so we don't buy these bonds, but we help you through the sale process. And it'll go out to a contested bid once there's a successful vote, obviously, but we do not actually buy the bonds, so we're here as a representative of you as a district to look out on your behalf throughout this whole process.
We also we'll need to prepare a review and comment. I don't know if, Rod, if you want to maybe take us a little bit through the review and comment process and what that's all about, because we're new to this, so help us, educate us on this next step.
Okay, no problem. Thank you for having me as well. Again, yes, the review and comment is a Department of Education required document that outlines what you're proposing to do. It's your project proposal, so to speak. So it outlines your enrollment trends. It looks at your geographic area and your demographics a little bit, and why is the project needed. So it goes through a lot of things you've already done, but we need to outline that for the Department of Education, and they review it to make sure that it's educationally and financially sound plan. Essentially. So then we have to put in how it's going to be financed. So we'll get financial information that Kelly will provide. And that all goes into this report so they can review it and make sure that there's a good plan in place. That has some timelines to it, but we're in good shape and looking at a potential spring vote, if you would call for that. There would be a good time frame for that.
And that would be done by, basically that's done where myself as the superintendent and you guys
Right.
and Springstead and Kraus Anderson, we would kind of
We would collaborate as a team.
put that together. That needs to also come back to you for approval. So whatever's decided tonight is not final. This is the step to basically start moving into that review and comment process. And there still will need to be a call for an election and a final, what do we want to have on the ballot before we get there. But we're kind of, tonight, after the facility community task force recommendation, it's up to you to say, what do you want to proceed with? And we'll start working on that. And that's where we would go.
How many days does it take, or how long, for this review and comment up at the MDE?
It's going to take a few weeks to prepare it, and then once it's submitted to the Department of Education, the department gets 60 days to review that document.
Yeah, the reason we talk about review and comment early is because we use the rule of thumb, figure 90 days to be submitting it ahead of the vote. Because as Rod said, the Department of Ed gets 60 days to review it, and then you're bound to publish the commissioner's letter and findings not closer than 20 days to the election date. So with those 20 days on the 60 days and allowing some time to get it into your legal paper or whatever that publication is, that we just round that off and say 90 days is a good rule of thumb. And that's actually kind of the longest piece of the whole thing once you've identified a project you want to move forward with. Whereas another big step that maybe you're going to have Kelly talk about is the resolution to call the election, which is a much more formal legal document and ballot questions. That one is 74 days prior to the vote. So That one can follow, sometimes districts do them both, they approve both the same night. Sometimes they get the review and comment going, and then they kind of dial it in a little bit as they prepare the ballot question and the real amount that they're gonna ask voters.
And you do want to have a positive or a favorable review and comment from
Yes.
the Department of Education, because that can create some other issues if it's not, but
Well, if you don't, you need a 60% or supermajority to pass it. You can go without a review and comment or a negative one, but in Minnesota, you would have to have a 60% win on your vote, which is not easy to do.
thus you want MDE to say,
great if it
we
happens."
give you our blessing,
Yeah.
because that turns into the 50% plus
Right.
one needed for passage. Any other questions? Or- I mean, just so for the community too, the board was at the facility task force. They've heard this, that's why we didn't really go through any other type of formal process with the recommendation, because you were here, you heard what they said, you heard what the community survey was report, you got all of that also. So it kind of comes down to now tonight acting in a formal way of how we proceed with that. So if there are no other questions, I think we could be informed in order to have a motion to direct me to move forward with something.
So should I read that?
Well, we need somebody to
Yep.
make a motion, so.
Oh. Do I have a motion to direct, should I just read all that then?
I don't,
To go
I
forward
have a
with-
question, I guess.
Yep,
before.
go.
Would anyone be in favor of doing a third question and adding on all three of the last ones as a third question?
Say that again, Katie.
Like you would do the first and second question the way they are, and do a third question that has the greenhouse, the, what else is on it? The
the.
fitness center and the.
Career tech ed
And the
classroom.
career tech ed.
Yep.
Doing that as a third question. You know, where we're going through all the money to do the vote and do the ballot, what's the harm of putting it on there? I guess is my question. Or what does everybody think about that?
Well, I think the biggest thing is our survey showed us that people didn't want the cardio, the greenhouse, and the technical side, but
Right.
There was
I
a
just
little-
worry-
There was a little more support with the shop, the career tech.
Right.
You know, the shop classroom, there was a little more support for that. The other two showed a little less support, but.
I mean, I don't mind the idea. I just worry that those that are coming in and then they say three questions and they're like, gee, they're asking a lot of us. And I don't want them to get then upset and say, well, nope, on all, just
Right.
because they're like, geez, they're asking for a lot. And that may be just me thinking of a very small percentage. I don't want our major ones to not pass because they look at it that we've got three. I'd love for it to all happen, I absolutely would, but I want what I know is, a for sure support, I guess. I don't know, maybe I'm,
Well, I think what
I don't know.
you're citing what the survey said.
Right,
And you have
right.
to break down some of that data, and I mean, our parents were very supportive of doing all of it. They were, but we have to remember who's the majority of our voters, and the majority of the voters who aren't parents and aren't school employees, they were more skeptical. I think they felt, the 75% of the voters said yes to the elementary school and said yes to the safety and security items. The other ones, they weren't as strong, and that's where, the people who did the survey for us said, that's what you gotta take into account. And it isn't, I mean, I think we have to acknowledge that there are people who wanted us to do everything, and I get
Yeah.
that, and I mean, I appreciate that. I mean, and I think you go through all of this, and we did our study, and it showed that we have these needs, and You know, we're trying to get that, but you also have to,
I just didn't know with more education, like,
yeah.
more, I mean, just, because I think some people don't even know what those are.
Mhm.
I
Right,
mean,
right, yep.
Especially the
They
older.
may not.
Yep.
You know, I mean, I think of like a grant, reading that and being like, well, I don't even know what that is. What's a, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
so,
Yep.
I don't know, I just wonder if with, you know, with educating the public of what they are and what the needs are, if that might change. I don't know, just a
Yep.
thought.
No?
Although we don't want to
That's a
spread
good
our
thought.
education too thin over so many things that we miss these first very important things. I would think of that too.
I think we gotta remember too that we live in a pretty conservative community, and we need to identify what we need rather than what we want. And I think they would probably appreciate it if we stick to
Right,
what we need,
right,
rather
yep.
than trying to get everything we want.
Mm.
And there's ways we can do that with the 26.8, and those people are all about value and efficiencies, where that's what we can give them with that dollar amount as well.
Mhm.
Meaning I would stick with what the task force recommended.
And that's what they, that's what I was thinking too. It was pretty clear that night that this is what they wanted to do. Just the two questions and.
I think it's good to bring it up, though. Katie.
Yep.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, I
Very
just, that's
good.
just the thought that,
I think it's there. And I mean, people will say, did you weigh it? And I think, yeah, we definitely are.
And I still think, you know, educating them on what those are, so that if, you know, down the line, we look at something, you know, they, oh yeah, I remember them talking about that. You know, I mean, it's not gonna hurt to still educate them what those things are and what the needs are in those areas, you know, but it's, I think, let's just go with the ones that we know are fairly strong and,
And they are smaller items that, you know, at a later date, maybe there would be some other ways that we could do those types of things. It's efficiency-wise, all at once is definitely the best, but,
Mhm.
you know, we just, that's the decision that you guys have to make, so.
Mr.
Can I
Benson?
add some
Yes.
thoughts to the discussion? Well, when you look at multiple questions, it always gets a little more difficult because when you're bringing the information to the community, now you've got at least two or possibly three things that your focus is on, not just one. But that said, and we just finished a referendum with Columbia Heights in the metro area. They had three questions, they all three passed. Rod's firm just finished, Southland just had their referendum, and they dearly wanted that gymnasium, but they knew the survey told them that should be a second question, and it passed, so they got both to pass. I think in your case, you've got a very strong argument for at least two questions, one being the elementary is a very much, you know, a very focused train of thought. The pre-K 5, that sits very nicely by itself and on its own. I think then when you start looking at these components at the high school, you may just want to do a second question that's either safety and security, which is obviously very popular out there in the world. It's hard to say no to a district that wants to improve that in this day and age, and possibly, you know, some CTE classroom upgrades. But if you keep putting more questions, it looks like you're just stacking things on, and it doesn't look as clear it's a harder message to convey to the community and the public. Now, with all that said, another thing that you can do in the structuring of the review and comment, we want to make sure that we aren't going to promise things like a greenhouse if that's not the choice of the board. But I think we want to in there have enough general language about high school curriculum enhancements and in areas of career and tech, which in our mind includes greenhouse potentially. And so you can have some wording like that, and then if the bids come in good and you've got extra money from the bond, you can go ahead and consider those because you touched on that area in the review and comment. What you can't do is do a review and comment specific, go out, you've got extra money, and all of a sudden you want to build a hockey arena with the extra money. If you didn't tell your public that's not going to be allowed. But and I know I'm being kind of crazy there, but people will look at stuff like that, including a greenhouse potentially, unless you have language in there that allows you to enhance those learning areas. And that's not a problem to do that. But you're not promising it, because then you're gonna get held to that too. You promised there'd be a greenhouse. Now, if we didn't have the funding for it and it doesn't come about, we don't wanna be held to that either.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
'Cause I think
I
we
hope
did,
that helps.
well, we did talk about, I mean, and this is where, I mean, we talked about, you know, with the fifth grade and having some areas that we might be able to look at some remodeling issues. You know, we might be able to squeeze a few of those things in and make a few adjustments, so that might be where we, you know, so that's where,
So in other words, we
Gary's
should definitely put it in our review and comment, even if we put it on the ballot or not. Or at least touch on
And the
it.
ballot will have some of that general language too about, you know, betterment and improvements and.
We gotta be careful though about if we have extra money and we end up building a greenhouse or whatnot, and people are gonna say, hey, we didn't vote for that, we voted for a new elementary school. And if that's going to affect us trying to pass an operating levy 5 years down the road, well, I don't want
Right,
that, because
right.
that's what we need to educate is the operating levy. So I think we have to be aware of that.
you're the board, you get to say.
Well, it's good to get it out in front of everybody right now, and everybody talking. You know, I never knew what you just said,
Well, right.
that if it's not in that thing, we can't do it. That's very
That's
good.
interesting.
Yeah, you could definitely be challenged if you did something significant that wasn't called out in there, because then your taxpayers could say, well, we didn't vote for that, and if there's extra money, we're not giving you the right to spend it on something brand new. You can enhance what was in the review and comment and put more into those spaces. So that's why I'm saying that wording, and it's not to trick anyone, it's to allow yourself enough latitude if you can enhance spaces, but you'd probably want to, we could even say that in the review and comment, that if, you know, other needs such as egg science or something would be considered.
When I don't know, so people are so much against it as the fact that they just don't want to pay more for it.
Right.
I mean, you know what I mean? I think if you could get some of those things, I don't think people would be against having them. Or, I mean, it's not that they don't want the kids to have it or they don't think necessarily we need it. I think it's just they don't want to pay the extra.
That was definitely
Yeah.
in the
I mean,
survey was, the maximum, which included all those things, was not
Right. I
something
think if
that
we
the
could
tax toleration was there for.
get more for their money, I would think anyone would be, okay. I would think they'd be okay with it. You know, I mean, you're getting more for your dollar, more bang for your buck.
So motion this. Is that what you want them to say? Is that what you want me to motion?
Just leave that there.
As an example.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
I motion to direct the superintendent to work with consultants that are here to prepare a review and comment to report, or review and comment report for a 2-question ballot. Question 1 being a new pre-K 5 through elementary school located at middle school, high school for $26.8 million, which includes the decommissioning of Brown and Hill. And question 2, which would be for the safety and security with the approximate cost of $930,000.
Thank you, Mr. Erdman.
Second.
Second, Mr. Roy. Thank you, Mr. Roy. Any other discussion?
Also, just to be clear that this should be done in a timeline for a April election?
We'll have it ready by April.
Well, we want to have there's timelines.
Add on.
There's timelines for an April 9th
Amend,
election.
amend.
That's where we have that's the parameters where we got to get some things done.
Mhm.
When the election is, the things that need to be done, the notices that need to be published. We have processes that need to be done, so it's also important to note this is, we would like this to be an April election. Okay.
With that added on, still second that, Lanny.
I'll second that.
Well, just, there's a
Yes.
sample, is this, you summarized, but this is
Yeah.
what you,
Yep.
this motion, so we
Motion.
can put this in the record? Okay.
Beautiful. Any other discussion? Bless you. Any other discussion? Any other discussion? All right. Does this have to be roll call? No.
No?
Nope. All those in favor of the motion in front of you that Randy just summarized, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving on to 4.4, construction management.
The facility committee,
Let me sit up straight.
yeah, facility committee did interviews of construction management firms and is bringing forth Kraus Anderson as the recommended construction manager that will be a part of this process for us. And I don't know if the facility task force has anything to say or add, but
Well, we interviewed 3 people, or 3 companies.
They didn't bring us cookies, but.
Yeah, he didn't bring us cookies.
But.
Tell you, they did a very good presentation, and
Paper here.
Yep.
I think our biggest thing that kind of sold us all was helping with bond referendum passing. That was kind of a big
Guiding
thing
us,
to
yeah.
us.
Do I need a motion?
I think we just, the full board should accept Kraus Anderson as our construction manager. Contracts and things with all of this are kind of, we will work through them. Part of it is what's the project cost, and when that stuff starts getting finalized, I think more of that paperwork will start to come in, and we'll work through that. But I think this is our team, and we've been working with ISG, and we'll have a formalized contract with them for this, and also with Springstead as we go through, so.
Okay, so
but
motion to,
We've named them before, so this is the first time we're bringing Kraus Anderson on, and so, thank you, Gary Benson, for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
so do we need that motion?
Make a motion to approve Kraus Anderson as our construction management company for the current build.
Second.
Thank you, thank you. Any other?
I think Katie beat ya.
Yeah, Katie beat you, Jeff. Any other discussion? Any questions? Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of Kraus Anderson for the construction management firm signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Mr. Botts. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Taubert. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We're adjourned.
All right.